Hey, Philadelphia Eagles fans! We're just a few hours away from the game against the Buffalo Bills. The tension is real, and I'm already breathing football. This isn't just another game. It's a test of strength, mindset, and this team's identity. The playoffs are right around the corner. Today, the jersey weighs heavy, the stadium speaks, and every snap matters. If you bleed green, believe in this roster, and trust the work that's being done, smash the like button right now. It really helps the channel. And leave your message in the comments the way this fan base knows how to do it. Go Eagles! I believe! Lane Johnson is not playing again, and at this point the message is loud even if it hasn't been stated outright. He hasn't played since the Lions game at Lincoln Financial Field because of that Lisfranc injury, and now we're talking about 6 straight missed games. There was real optimism last week. He warmed up before the Washington game. Adam Schefter even reported that the expectation was for Lane to play against Buffalo in what feels like a playoff-level test. And yet, here we are again, and he's out. The way this is being handled tells you the Eagles are thinking beyond Week 17, beyond Week 18, and squarely toward January. For a player as critical as Lane Johnson, especially with his history of ankle and foot issues and the sheer physical demands of his position, there's no sense rushing him just to say he played. If he can't go through a full game without significant injury risk, they're not putting him out there. That's the conservative approach, but it's also the smart one when you're chasing a deep playoff run. It also hints at what might happen in Week 18. Even if Lane were close, would you really bring him back in a potentially meaningless game against Washington? Probably not. Everything points to Lane Johnson being preserved for the postseason, and while it's frustrating in the short term, it could pay off in a massive way when the games truly matter. The situation at linebacker is just as important. Nakobe Dean is out after suffering a hamstring injury against Washington, and that means Jeremiah Trotter Jr. will step in alongside Zach Bond. This isn't a knock on Trotter at all. He's a good player, and he's played well in Vic Fangio's system when given opportunities. But let's be honest about how this unfolded. Dean played so well that he essentially pushed Trotter out of the starting role earlier in the season. Now the Eagles are being reminded, in real time, of the depth they invested in at that position. Trotter brings more speed, length, and athleticism, and this game against Buffalo is a serious test with James Cook being such a key engine of that Bills offense. And looming over all of this is an offseason decision that Howie Roseman is going to have to make. Nakobe Dean is headed for free agency, and his leadership, instincts, and impact on this defense are undeniable. At the same time, you drafted Trotter. You developed him. These are the kinds of roster decisions that define whether a team can keep winning year after year. When you look at the rest of the injury report, there's actually some good news. A.J. Brown, Landon Dickerson, Jalen Carter, DeVonta Smith, Zach Bond, Trotter, Fred Johnson, and Cam Jurgens all appeared on the report this week, but none of them carry a game designation. They're ready to go. A.J. Brown had his wisdom teeth removed and still pushed through to be available, closing in on yet another 1,000-yard season. That tells you everything about his toughness and importance to this offense. Jalen Carter's situation might be the most eye-opening of all. This is a player who hadn't played since the Bears game because of shoulder issues that were so severe he couldn't even do a push-up a couple of weeks ago. Think about that for a moment. One of the most dominant defensive linemen in the NFL couldn't perform a basic movement because of pain in both shoulders. He underwent PRP treatments, a process designed to accelerate healing using the body's own blood, and now he's in a much better place physically. That matters not just for Sunday, but for what the Eagles hope is a long postseason run. It also raises real questions about the offseason, because both shoulders are expected to require attention, and how that's managed will be a major storyline once this year ends. On the Buffalo side, there are notable absences as well. Jordan Poyer is out, a veteran safety who has logged hundreds of snaps this season. Jordan Phillips, one of their key interior defensive linemen and run stoppers, is also out. Their kicker situation is unsettled too, with Matt Prater sidelined and Michael Badgley stepping in after missing an extra point last week. All of this ties directly into what could decide this game, running the football. Weather conditions are expected to be cold, windy, and rainy, and that puts an even greater emphasis on physicality in the trenches. The Bills have struggled mightily against the run, ranking near the bottom of the league in yards per carry and rushing yards allowed per game. Even without Lane Johnson, the Eagles should be able to lean into that weakness. They've run for over 100 yards in 6 of their last 8 games, and lately, the offense has started to resemble what we saw last season, especially with those late, explosive runs that put games away. All of this is happening while the Eagles are still very much alive in the race for the number 2 seed in the NFC. There are multiple paths to get there, and while some help is needed, winning remains the priority. Beyond the standings, though, this game feels like a measuring stick, a chance to sharpen the identity of this team against a high-level opponent, to see how depth players respond, and to continue building momentum heading into the playoffs. And when you zoom out even further, it becomes impossible not to appreciate the bigger picture. Sustained winning in the NFL is brutally hard, yet the Eagles keep doing it. 5 straight playoff appearances, double-digit wins year after year, multiple NFC titles and Super Bowl trips in recent seasons. This isn't just about talent acquisition. It's culture, it's coaching, it's quarterback play. Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, despite constant changes around them, continue to deliver results. That kind of consistency is rare, and it's something Eagles fans are witnessing in real time. With all of that in mind, considering the injuries, the playoff implications, and the long-term direction of this roster, how do you feel about the way the Eagles are managing this moment right now? And do you believe this approach truly sets them up for a deeper postseason run? When you stay locked into that bigger picture, it also changes how you view some of the conversations that are already starting to bubble up about the offseason, even though this team still has meaningful football ahead of it. That's the position the Eagles have put themselves in, and frankly, it's a privilege in this league. While other fan bases are already counting draft picks and coaching changes, Philadelphia is talking about seeding, health management, and how to fine-tune a roster that's built to compete deep into January. That's why the discussion around sustained success matters so much here. Look around the NFL landscape and you see just how fragile winning can be. Teams that piled up wins last year have already fallen out of the picture. Others are staring at major resets. Meanwhile, the Eagles continue to stack playoff appearances, double-digit win seasons, and division titles. Since Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts took over as the head coach and starting quarterback, this organization has been to the playoffs every single year, for straight seasons with double-digit wins, multiple NFC East titles, including back-to-back for the first time in over 2 decades, 2 NFC championships and 2 Super Bowl appearances in a short span, capped by a Super Bowl victory. That doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't happen just because of one person in the building. Howie Roseman deserves credit, no doubt. He drafts, trades, manages the cap, and constantly looks for ways to keep the roster competitive. But this run is also about culture and continuity at the most important positions. The general manager doesn't install the schemes. He doesn't develop players on the practice field. He doesn't take snaps or make in-game decisions under pressure. That's where Sirianni and Hurts come in, and their impact is undeniable. Even as coordinators come and go, even as injuries pile up, the standard remains the same. Compete, adapt, and win. That context is important when you start thinking about what comes next for this defense, especially on the edge. The name Max Crosby is going to come up again and again as the offseason approaches, and there's a reason for that. The Raiders have already shut him down for the season with a knee injury that will require surgery, and the organization itself appears to be heading toward a full reset. Crosby is a phenomenal player, but he's also expensive, and he's entering a phase of his career where you have to ask hard questions about durability. For a rebuilding team, that's not always a clean fit. From the Eagles' perspective, this is familiar territory. Roseman has never been shy about chasing elite talent in the trenches. If a star pass rusher becomes available, Philadelphia will make the call. That doesn't mean a move will happen, and it doesn't mean the Eagles are dissatisfied with what they have. Nolan Smith has flashed. Josh Sweat continues to be productive. Brandon Graham, even late in his career, still brings value and leadership, and there's a real sense that he could return in a more specialized role if he wants to keep playing. But the Eagles are always thinking a step ahead, and that's part of why they've stayed relevant year after year. All of this ties back into the moment we're in right now. This game against Buffalo isn't just another regular season matchup. It's a test of depth, discipline, and identity. It's a chance for players like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. to show they can step up when called upon. It's an opportunity for the offensive line to prove it can still control games even without its all-pro right tackle. It's a proving ground for an offense that's rediscovered its ability to close games on the ground, and for a defense that's managing injuries while preparing for playoff-level competition. And maybe most importantly, it's another reminder of how fortunate Eagles fans are to watch this era of football. For much of the franchise's history, sustained success was elusive. Over the last quarter century, that's changed dramatically. Division titles, conference championship appearances, Super Bowls, and consistent relevance have become the expectation rather than the exception. That doesn't mean every season ends with a parade, but it does mean you're always in the fight. In the NFL, that's everything. So as this team pushes toward the postseason, with tough decisions being made and bigger ones looming on the horizon, the question becomes how you As a fan, view this stretch. Do you feel confident in the way the Eagles are balancing urgency with patience, especially when it comes to health and long-term goals? Do you believe this roster, as constructed and managed, has what it takes to make another serious Super Bowl run? And as you let that sink in, it becomes clear that what the Eagles are really doing right now is playing a long game without ever losing sight of the immediate challenge in front of them. That balance is rare. Most teams either panic and chase short-term fixes or look so far ahead that the present slips away. Philadelphia has managed to sit in the middle, and that's why this stretch feels different. They're not scrambling. They're not desperate. They're calculated. You can see it in how they've handled Lane Johnson. You can see it in how they've trusted their depth at linebacker. You can see it in the way they've leaned back into the run game, even when it wasn't always flashy earlier in the season. This team understands who it needs to be when the weather gets cold and the margin for error disappears. That's not accidental. That's learned through experience, through playoff heartbreaks and deep runs, through Super Bowl appearances where every snap feels heavier than the last. There's also a mental edge that comes with that experience. When you've been here before, when you've played in conference championships and Super Bowls, you don't flinch when adversity hits. Injuries don't derail the entire plan. They force adjustments, yes, but not identity changes. The Eagles still want to be physical. They still want to control the line of scrimmage. They still want to dictate terms, not react to them. That mindset is exactly why games like this one against Buffalo are so valuable, regardless of how the seeding ultimately shakes out. Because if you strip everything else away, this matchup is about preparation. It's about seeing how far this team has come since earlier in the season. It's about evaluating who can be trusted when the lights are brightest. Coaches are watching. Front office executives are watching. And whether fans realize it or not, moments like these quietly shape postseason roles and off-season priorities. And that's what makes being an Eagles fan right now so compelling. You're not just watching a single game. You're watching chapters being written. You're watching decisions that will echo into January and beyond. You're watching a franchise that expects to compete every single year, even when the league around it proves just how difficult that is to sustain. And even beyond the tactical side of things, there's an emotional layer to this season that shouldn't be ignored. You can feel it in the fan base. You can feel it in the way these games are being discussed, and you can absolutely feel it in how the team is being managed. This isn't a group just trying to survive the schedule. This is a group that knows exactly where it wants to go and understands what it takes to get there. That's why every decision feels intentional. Resting certain players isn't fear, it's confidence. Trusting younger guys in meaningful roles isn't recklessness, it's belief in development. The Eagles aren't hoping things break their way. They're positioning themselves so that when adversity shows up, it doesn't knock them off course. That's the difference between teams that sneak into the playoffs and teams that expect to be there every year. It also explains why the locker room leadership matters so much right now. Veterans who've been through deep runs understand how quickly a season can flip. They know that one rushed decision in December can cost you everything in January. That awareness trickles down to the younger players, setting a tone that preparation and patience aren't weaknesses, they're weapons. When the playoffs arrive, the teams that last are usually the ones that didn't burn themselves up trying to win every headline in December. And for Eagles fans, this is where perspective comes in. It's easy to get caught up in what's missing, who's not playing, or what could go wrong. But zoom out for a moment and look at what's actually in place. A quarterback who has already proven he can lead a team to the Super Bowl. A head coach who consistently gets his team ready despite constant external noise. A front office that refuses to stand still. A roster built on the trenches, depth, and adaptability. Those are the pillars that matter when the season tightens. This stretch is also a reminder that nothing about this success should be taken for granted. The NFL doesn't allow comfort. One year you're on top, the next you're watching the playoffs from home. The Eagles have avoided that fate not by luck, but by relentless standards. And right now, they're being tested again, not just by opponents, but by expectations. Expectations from the city, from the league, and from themselves. So as the road ahead becomes clearer and the stakes rise with every snap, this is the time to lock in as fans and really appreciate what's unfolding. These moments, these seasons, are the ones people look back on years later and realize how special they were while they were happening. And as this season keeps moving forward, the pressure only sharpens the focus on what really separates contenders from everyone else. Talent matters, of course, but at this stage of the year, discipline, clarity, and trust often decide outcomes just as much as raw ability. The Eagles are leaning into that understanding. They're not chasing perfection, they're chasing readiness. There's a big difference. You see it in how calmly this team handles uncertainty. Injuries don't lead to panic moves or desperate adjustments. Instead, the response is next man up, with confidence that the system will hold and that preparation will show itself when it counts. That doesn't guarantee anything, but it gives you a chance. And in this league, That's all you can ask for. Once you're in the tournament, once you're healthy enough and connected enough, anything can happen. There's also something to be said about how this team carries itself externally. The noise around the league is constant. Hot takes, speculation, comparisons, doubt. Yet the Eagles continue to operate as if none of that matters. That quiet confidence is earned. It comes from winning over time, from proving that one season wasn't a fluke and that success isn't tied to one perfect set of circumstances. It comes from knowing who you are. For fans, that creates an interesting dynamic. Expectations are high, and rightly so. But with high expectations comes the temptation to overreact to every detail. A missed game, a close win, a less than perfect performance. The truth is, seasons like this are rarely clean. They're messy, they're uneven, and the teams that survive are usually the ones that don't demand dominance every single week, but growth and resilience over time. That's where the Eagles are right now, still learning about themselves, still refining roles, still testing depth, and all of it is happening with the postseason firmly in sight. This isn't about peaking too early. It's about arriving at the playoffs with answers, not questions. About knowing which combinations work, which players can be trusted, and how to win when the game doesn't go exactly as planned. So when you watch these final games, watch beyond the scoreboard. Watch how they respond to adversity. Watch how they close quarters. Watch how they communicate. Those details are the real indicators of how far a team can go. And so far, Philadelphia continues to show that it understands what this time of year demands. And when you step back and really absorb everything that's happening, it becomes clear that this stretch of the season is less about proving something to the league and more about confirming what the Eagles already believe about themselves. They know who they are. They know what their strengths are. And they're comfortable with the idea that not everything has to look perfect right now for it to work when it matters most. That confidence comes from scars as much as it comes from success. This team has felt the pain of falling short on the biggest stage, and it has also felt the validation of finishing the job. Both experiences shape how you approach moments like this. You don't chase style points. You don't overextend players just to satisfy